Ekenem ono, ndo, udo, nefunaya. Greetings. The topic, the title of my talk presentation today is Traditional Igbo Masks and Masquerades and the Search for Agency and Voice in a Politically Dysfunctional Nation. I'll start with an Igbo proverb that says, Eze kpọọ ajọ agwa, ekpuru nkata n'ihu, gwa ya okwu. This can be translated loosely as, when a person of authority misbehaves, wear a mask and chastise the person. This Igbo proverb is a premise upon which I lay the foundation of my talk. My maternal grandmother had a house near River Niger at Nebisi Road, Asaba. I lived with her as a child. At certain nights, while listening to her stories, a group of people with masquerades called Ewuwu, or masked spirits, will burst through the night and amble toward the river. When I asked my grandmother why they were being led to the river, she would tell me that the ancestral spirits were returning to the land of the dead, that they return to the spirit realm through the river, even though they come out from the ground. These were masquerades I had watched during the day. I watched them twist and dance at burials, and I ran in terror as they chased us away from marked boundaries. These marked masquerades, or rather, these marked boundaries, are symbolic of ethical lines that should not be crossed. Masquerades are of the spirit world. They are ancestors that guide us through their wisdom. My grandmother said they guide the dead home and that they are the bridge between the living and the dead. In Igbo land, masked spirits and masquerades play an important role in resolving conflicts and maintaining peace and harmony. Masquerades are known to intervene in cases of injustice and discrimination. For instance, they maintain fairness on issues of the Osu. These are a group of people in Igbo land considered to be outcasts. And when problems arise with how slaves were treated, they also intervened. Different masquerades play different roles. There's the Asa masquerade of Amiibo people of Imo State that expresses the beauty of femininity and signifies the Igbo ideal of gender balance. There's the Arawa Abogo masquerade of Isu people with 7 breasts that celebrates the essence of motherhood and the Igbo aspiration of birth and renewal. Then there's the Ekbe masquerade, which is a very powerful cult in traditional Ngwa society. It appears during ritual festivals and involves sacrifices of purgation of social ills, and then to attract favors and blessings of the gods, especially for agricultural boom. There's also the Owu of Orodo people, also in Imo State, notorious for its alluring voice and dancing skills. My grandmother's lessons about Egungun are revelations. Over the years, they have followed me about, deepening my interest in Igbo culture and fascination with masks and masquerades. Nonetheless, I have often wondered what inhabits the masks. If not that we were forbidden from revealing the identity of masked wearers, I'd hit my chest and swear that the voices from the masks were voices of people we knew. The mystery, however, was that they ceased to be people we knew the moment they wore the masks and they became gods. Their voices are voices of the gods, and whatever pronouncement they make, be it a blessing or a curse, was binding on all members of a community. My curiosity with masks and masquerades has shown me that the Igbo masking and masquerading system has the power to organize and serve as agency and a voice for the oppressed, in line with the abiding culture of equity in traditional Igbo society. This inclination to social justice affirms the place of masks and masquerades in the collective selfhood of Igbo nation. Masks and masquerades are important symbols in Igbo culture. As agents of social integration, they perform the social functions of governance and foster democracy in society. In Village Democracy by E.N. Okechukwu, he offers us an illuminating and comprehensive account of the democratic structures of his native Agbaja village. In his depiction of the rank scheme of governance in Agbaja, he highlights the functions of the village, lineage, and family in the formulation of laws and praise the role of leaders of these institutions in the entrenchment of democracy. Okechukwu's account, which is representative of the democratic arrangement of different parts of Igbo land, foregrounds the place of masquerades in the maintenance of social order. He acknowledges the masquerades as cult, as a government functionary, and explains that masquerades effect obedience to the sanctions of the town on a culprit. He establishes the primacy of the authority in his revelation that masquerades could invade a culprit's home and seize all his belongings until the owner paid the stipulated fine for his crime and again reclaim his or her property by a further fine. This culture of checks and balances can be infused into the system of governance in contemporary Nigeria to ensure adequate and honest political representation. Also, in traditional Igbo society, masquerades perform the functions ranging from entertainment to policing. During festivals, they sing, dance, and enact dramatic acts that recreate the ancestral history of their community. As moral police, they call out people who have committed one offense or the other in the land. Through songs and dance, they ridicule these offenders when provoked by the actions of members of the society. They're generous with curses. These acts of public ridicule serves as a means of checkmating the excesses of privileged members of a community and instilling in the society a sense of decorum and caution. It is through the festival, which often mark the renewal of life in traditional society, that masquerades act out the rituals of communal purgation. Although masks and masquerades are constituents of the crucial organs of government, like the Women Association, Age Grade, Council of Elders, and title holders, they're committed to the promotion of law and order. Their divine invincibility marks them out as the dominant and most visible institution of government in traditional Igbo society. Nevertheless, Christianity and especially colonialism has diffused the sacred functions of masks and masquerades as powerful agents of social change. Contemporary Nigeria society now misconceives masking and masquerading as acts of cultural diabolism. The lack of native wisdom of contemporary Nigerian society strengthens the political instability and economic setback of the country. Colonial exploitation, a huge part of which is manifested through the harms of capitalism, contribute hugely to contemporary Africa's condition of instability and poverty. For instance, France and Britain, two of the most notorious colonial powers in history, are responsible for the division of West Africa into Francophone and Anglophone countries. Britain's indirect rule system created a West African economy developed by the indigents under colonial supervision for the purpose of enriching Britain. And France's policy of assimilation, deriving from the desire to transform Africa into a little France, was in practice a wicked and intolerable act of cultural and political domination. These forms of oppression stirred in the African a strong feeling of resentment for the colonial institution and thus provoked in them the aspirations of nationalism. But because of the colonial legacy of oppression and moral destitution, which is sadly sustained by neocolonial agents of the seemingly departed colonizers, Independence did not offer Africa the freedom and satisfaction of self-government. It rather entrenched British corrupt system that the West, and particularly the male African elite, collaborate in. This continues to perpetuate corruption, ethnic rivalries, and electoral malfunction in several African countries. In the case of Nigeria, the Biafra War of 1966 to 1970 is a sufficient testament to the abiding evil of colonial establishment. The Nigerian police system, for instance, a tool of oppression, was established as a colonial machinery. Also, decades of unbearable military dictatorship that accompanied the end of devastating war are derived from the brutality of the colonial empire. Likewise, the dreadful magnitude of civil oppression that permeates our supposedly democratic country generates its forcefulness from the civilian disciples of armed generals. Worthy of note is how powerful and exalted these tyrannical institutions are meant to be, how they are fortified by the law such that nobody under the Constitution can challenge them successfully, even under a democratic rule. To defeat such institutions, one must not just possess a power more revered than theirs. One must also be invincible before the law. This is where masking and masquerades step in. As it is, Nigerians are citizens of a dysfunctional nation, the grass that bears the brunt of a fight between two elephants. We bemoan our misfortune for many years and hope that one day our leaders will reconsider our plight. But in October 2020, it became obvious to us that our despots will not stop plundering our economy. So we united our voices and demanded for social justice through the EndSARS protest. The EndSARS movement was more collective than individualistic in the sense that it has no leaders, no face, masks. This will be our first attempt, I'd say, at masking and masquerading. The movement was a ritual of self-sacrifice, which is an integral part of Igbo Masquerade Festival, aimed at renewing the soil and life of contemporary Nigeria. Given the present condition of social injustice and poor governance in Nigeria, it became necessary to harness the revolutionary potentials of traditional Igbo masks and masquerades to salvage our dysfunctional nation. We needed the energy and facelessness of masks and masquerades to look political tyrants in the face, and like Photoman in A Dream of Africa, and tell them that a regime built on split blood is nothing but a regime of anarchy and dictatorship, a regime based on violence, and that we will not accept such disheartening condition. The protesters were people committed to the restoration of the fundamental human rights of Nigerians. They dared power and spoke to it without fear. They called violence and evil by their rightful names and sought to ingrain justice in an unjust society. There's a certain spirituality to their readiness to sacrifice their lives for the liberation of Nigerians. Also, it seems to me that the courage of the protesters in challenging the absolutism of a corrupt political structure derives from the Igbo aversion to exploitation and injustice, and their victory in enforcing the disbandment of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad is evocative of Amadioha's retributive justice. In their organized and decentralized agitation against police brutality, the protesters justify a Siaba Irobe's notion that a revolution is always organized, its strategies planned out, its aims and objectives mapped out, and that in doing this, the revolutionaries have no need for an ideological Methuselah or a leader. Moreover, this idea of anonymity, which contributes significantly to the success of the movement, is evocative of the sacred facelessness of Igbo masks and masquerades. The shared vision of the protest and traditional Igbo masking and masquerading system expresses the significance of traditional Igbo masks and masquerades in contemporary Nigeria. In Igbo land, masquerades are regarded as ancestors who appear to their descendants and masquerading is a human attempt to establish relationship with the divine. Masks are sacred images of deities, and masking is a creation of gods in material forms. Writing on the Igbo culture of exercising godship through masking and masquerading, Isiaba further comments that when a people mold a god, they make a man the image of the god. And whenever the god is summoned, the spirit appears in the wake of the god. The Igbo ideal of creating gods through masking and exercising godship by masquerading is capable of strengthening contemporary Nigeria's system of governance, if adequately deployed. The prosperity of traditional Igbo society, in which gods were collectively created and owned by the people, suggests the need to restructure Nigeria's electoral system to reflect true democracy, to establish a political structure that will recognize the fundamental right of the citizens to elect their leaders or to be their leaders, as was obtainable in the archetype Igbo societies, where no one but the voice of the gods was king. Masks and masquerades are also embodiments of Ofo Nogu, the Igbo deity of justice. In the Igbo worldview, Amadioha is the god of justice and also known for his violent thunder. In Igbo land, anyone struck by thunder is assumed to have committed an abomination deserving of Amadioha's unforgiving wrath. Elaborating on the ferocity of the deity, Cardinal Arinze comments that the corpse of one struck by the deity is not carried into the house, and the sacrifices must be offered at the fatal spot. He reveals that the most notorious thing about Amadioha is his harsh policy of seizing all the possessions of his victims. Perhaps the Economic and Financial Commission, EFCC, of Nigeria should apply the Amadioha ideal of justice in deploying its character of incorruptibility in their chosen role of fighting corruption. This will fall in line with the legal ethics of masks and masquerades in the judicial system of contemporary Nigeria. I am Nigerian. What this means is that I bear the frustrations of a dysfunctional nation. To be a Nigerian writer is to carry the burden of reflecting on the misfortune of a country unable to meet the conditions of nationhood. The task of mending the wounds inflicted on the body and psyche of Nigerians by the political class is challenging, but our collective zeal for social justice, convincingly demonstrated by the NSAS protest, is resolute. I have several reasons to thank the conveners of this conference for inviting me to make this presentation, but I'm especially grateful to them for offering agency and voice to me through this invitation. By their commitment to the ideals of Igbo civilization and by their preservation of Igbo arts and culture, they show us the possibility of creating the future we desire by harnessing the potentials of our cultural heritage. By inviting us to break the cola of knowledge together, they keep alive the Igbo custom of kinship. I find Achebe's remark on the value of the bond of kinship among Igbo people illuminating. In Things Fall Apart, he writes, when we gather together in the moonlit night village ground, it is not because of the moon. Every man can see it from his own or her own compound. We come together because it is good for kinship to do so. This passage teaches us that our ancestors exalted the warmth of communal life above the trappings of individual pleasure. In reminding us of the tenets of our rich and illustrious tradition, Achebe promotes the consciousness of traditional Igbo culture among contemporary Igbo and non-Igbo people and exercises faith in the human capacity to cherish traditional institutions and elements and to install them for social change. It is true that our world and that of Things Fall Apart are essentially different in their outlooks, but their inspirations are similar. We and the inhabitants of the Igbo world of the novel are bonded by a culture of supreme beauty and transgenerational echo. They are testifiers to the magnificence of kinship, and we are inheritors of that shared humanity they embodied so intimately. In today's world, the ravages of COVID-19 pandemic have enabled the internet and the social media to replace the moonlit village ground. There is a sense in which most of us, especially those born before this present century, feel separated from our cultural center. But we are also conscious of the reality of our time. We understand that we live in a world that is ceaselessly seeking newer ways to survive and transcend the wreckages of corrupt political institutions. So we do not mourn the loss of our primal setting. We rather keep vigil with our ancestors at the crossroads of dreams and invocations, and partake in the purifying ritual of communal regeneration through masking and masquerade. Although the moonlit village ground is no longer what it used to be in the past, the reason why our ancestors gathered has survived till our time. I believe they gathered to tell stories. With the stories, they entertain themselves and preserve the culture we know and own today. Achebe further says that only the story can continue beyond the war and the warrior. It is the story that outlives the sounds of war drums and the exploits of brave fighters. It is the story that saves our progeny from blundering like blind beggars into the spike of the cactus fence. The story is our escort. Without it, we are blind. I do not think that the moon stays longer in the sky when we gather at the moonlit village ground, but I feel it shines brighter. And I think it is the story of how the living communes with the dead through the agency and voice of masks and masquerades that make it so. Dalono. Thank you so much.
Ogiri! 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 Heavenly Mesa, well, I say we did.